I recently posted a video about 10 things not to buy in 2025. I know so many of us are spending this year on either a no buy or a low buy, or if not that, we're just focused on being a lot more intentional with our spending in 2025. And with that in mind, today I want to build on what we talked about in the last video and share more ways to be intentional with your spending in the new year. So in the last video, I talked about 10 things you might regret buying because you don't necessarily need or want them. But in today's video, I want to focus on how to make smarter purchases when you are buying something. How to make a purchase that you're not going to regret, or at least you're less likely to. So obviously the best tool that we have to not make a bad purchase is a review, whatever format that may be, whether it's an online review from an influencer, whether it's an online written review on a website, maybe it's an in-person review from your friend or your family. Getting feedback from someone else that has played with the product is always going to be valuable to us. But in today's video, I want to talk about why we should be a little more critical of reviews in all of their formats. So I don't say critical from the perspective of distrusting necessarily, but having a healthy amount of skepticism is going to be good for your wallet. And understanding how to interact with reviews and how to use them strategically will help you not buy things that might not work for you in the long run. Okay, we're going to start with the obvious one here. We'll get this out of the way. But whenever I'm watching or reading or whatever a review, I always am mindful for overly vague descriptions. There are a few key words and phrases that always set off alarm bells in my head. The biggest one being a game changer. This is one I see and hear so often. If I'm reading a Sephora review, they love to say this is a game changer. A place I actually feel like I see it perhaps the most, as random as it is on a television commercial, like for a prescription medication. They'll be like, this prescription was a game changer for me, but they don't give you much context into how it changed the game for them. It's just this overly vague positive description. I also see this a ton with like skincare devices. I love skincare devices and I like to watch reviews on them, and that's one thing I hear so often. I'm like, this was such a game changer for me. But they don't give much context to how it did that, other than it was a game changer in my skincare routine. Something to be mindful of. Beyond that, I try to avoid what I'm gonna call yes or no reviews, okay? And this is something that I think a lot of people hear and view as a valuable review. I think a lot of people want reviews to exist on a binary, as this is a good product that you should get, or this is a bad product that you should not get, and it's just not that simple. For example, you hear someone say, this foundation is so bad, don't get it. You watch that review and you think, okay, that was credible, I'm not gonna get that foundation. But I would argue that structure, like a yes or no review, is rarely helpful to the viewer because it's missing so much context. Yes, at the end of a review, they could share their overall opinion of, yes, I think you should get this, or no, I don't think you should. But if that's all you're saying, the review did not help me. I need to know why you don't think I should get that. Maybe in your review you say, this foundation doesn't have enough coverage for me. I like something that's a little bit higher pigment. Therefore, I don't like the foundation. I don't recommend it. Even though the reviewer flat out told me, I don't recommend that you buy this foundation, description of the product sounds like something I would like. And I know this first one again was a little bit obvious, but I think it bears repeating considering the prevalence of short form reviews on the internet. That doesn't often give the creator much time to share the full background and experience with the product. The creator is almost incentivized to tell you very quickly whether they like it or not and use a vague description like it's a game changer, but that can be missing so much context that's valuable to you as the shopper. The next thing to consider when you're watching or reading reviews is the physical attributes of the person reviewing it. And this I'm specifically speaking of from a perspective of makeup, but it could also carry over to something like clothing. Okay, a great example of this, I am 5'2". The amount of times I have watched someone who's very tall, maybe like 5'11", look beautiful in a dress, and I'll think, oh my gosh, I need to buy that dress. It looks so flattering, it looks perfect. I have then bought the dress and put it on, and it didn't work on my proportions because I am 9 inches shorter than that person. Another personal example is the Gisou hair oil. I remember buying that a few years back because it was so hyped up on the internet, and I would see so many women with incredible hair raving about it, and I'm like, okay, I have to have it, I have to try it. Well, my hair type is very fine. I have a lot of hair, but the individual strands are very, very tiny. And the creators that I was watching that were raving about this product had a completely different hair texture than I do. They are much thicker hair. The actual strands are just larger than mine, so it carried that oil really well. Once I put that oil on my fine hair, it just weighed it right down and it looked so greasy. Yes, they were being sincere and genuine in their review, saying that they loved it, and I don't doubt that that product worked really well for them, but I have a completely different hair type and I overlooked that when I was listening to their reviews. Even with something like a brow gel, I've run into this as well because my eyebrow hair is also fine. And in the past, I've gotten recommendations for really firm, strong hold brow gel that people with much thicker hair strands love, that really hold their brows in place. But the hairs growing out of my eyebrows are so much more fine that those thick brow gels would actually weigh them down. So my preference ends up being the exact opposite of people that have fuller brows than I do. Also under this umbrella is your skin tone and especially your undertone. Someone can be a similar depth of skin to you, but have a different undertone, and the color of a product is going to present completely different on this person compared to this person. It's so fascinating how color theory works in this way. You could take one shade and put it on two different skin tones and it will present truly as a different color. I have made this mistake so many times before where I will see, it's always lip colors, that's what really gets me. I have bought many a lip liner because I've watched someone with medium skin tone apply a lip liner that went on for them as a nude lip liner, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. That's exactly what I've been lusting after. I'm gonna buy that exact same shade. Only to get the product, put it on my pale skin and have it present as a completely different color. It's almost like a dark brown on me. Same thing with undertones. A lipstick that could be a nude on one person might be a pink on you because your undertones are not the same.
You've always wondered why certain lipsticks or makeup shades don't work for you. It might be because of color theory. Of course, we're gonna do the color theory test and show you that even though me and Sahana are both brown, because we have very different undertones and lip tones, lip shades look very different on both of us. Because this is the sheer lip oil and she has two-toned lips, it looks very different on both of us. This is a purple lipstick, or so what I thought, because on me it looks purple, but on her it looks pink because she has a cooler undertone than I do. For example, this lipstick on me looks like a warm brown, but on her it kind of just looks orange. That is the power of understanding your undertone and knowing color theory.
This can obviously be pretty tricky to navigate, especially if you don't have that underlying knowledge of color theory. But a workaround for that, especially when it comes to cosmetics, is to go into the store and swatch them. Same thing for clothing. Had I gone and tried on that dress in stores, I might have realized it didn't really work for my body type. When it comes to physical attributes, you might be thinking, okay, well, this is only easy for me to consider when I'm watching an influencer review. But there are ways to filter these when you're reading online reviews as well. Specifically on Sephora, you can filter for different features. So if the reviewer self-identifies their hair type, their skin type, you have the option to filter your reviews through those metrics. This is especially helpful for skin concern. As someone who's acne prone, I like to go and search that one, like, okay, how did this work for people that are acne prone? What was their experience with this foundation? Did it make them break out? You can also filter for shade, which can be nice, especially because a lot of complexion products have bizarre undertones that don't truly mimic human skin. So then you can see if someone has a similar shade to, if they said this skews extremely yellow, that could be valuable for you to know as well. I didn't say you can also actually filter for age range, which is wonderful both for makeup products, skincare products. Having that additional data will help you better interpret their reviews. And actually, just to test it out, just now I typed in the Gisou hair oil, and then I specifically went to filter for the reviews from people that have fine hair. And unsurprisingly, the reviews are like, nope, not for fine hair. Unfortunately, the Ulta website doesn't give you the option to filter through these, but it will still highlight them and show you how people with these different physical attributes rated the product. Another thing to consider under this umbrella is the climate that the person lives in. That could be valuable to you as well, especially when it comes to makeup reviews. If someone is telling you this makeup wears really, really well for me, it holds up throughout a very long day, but then you know, well, wait a minute, I live in a very humid climate. Does this person live in a humid climate too? What are the conditions that that foundation is up against? These are all also valuable things to consider when you're watching a review. And Ulta reviews specifically include the location of the reviewer, so that could be something to keep in mind when you're reading what they have to say. The next thing to consider is how similar the reviewer's preferences are to you. This could be a little bit easier for an influencer, especially if it's someone that you watch consistently and you get an idea of what they tend to like versus not like. You can use that information to determine how similar your preferences are and then interpret their reviews accordingly. But a place I know this can be a little bit trickier to do is in online reviews, but I want to share a tip. Some websites, for example, Amazon, you can click on someone's account and then see all of their other reviews. So yes, these are strangers too, and you don't know them the way you would know an influencer and their personal preferences. But you can click on their profile, see their other reviews, and get an idea of what they tend to like or not like. This could especially be helpful if they've reviewed products that you also have or have tried, and then you can compare where your review matches up with theirs. Do you have a similar opinion on things for the most part? Similarly to that, I recommend looking at their reviews overall. Do they mostly skew positive? Do they mostly skew negative? This is also valuable when you're watching a creator. Get an idea. Do they tend to like everything? Are they critical when they need to be? Do they tend to hate everything? This is all valuable for you when you're interpreting their reviews. A non-beauty place that I use this is actually on Yelp, because on that platform as well, you can see the previous reviews from that creator. And sometimes I'll go through and see what other restaurants they've been to and reviewed and how I felt about that restaurant to see if we have similar preferences. So next, of course, you want to get a range of opinions. We obviously know this, but I want to talk about some ways to kind of strategize this, especially when it comes to online written out reviews. First thing I always do when I'm reading online reviews is to look up the star distribution. I like to see, is there a pretty even split between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 stars? Or are they pretty split between 1 star and 5 stars? That's generally my biggest red flag. If a product only has 5 stars and 1 star review, something's not adding up there. Generally, there's gonna be a range of opinions on a product. Not everyone can like everything, and we know that. But something I would recommend specifically on Sephora is to toggle off the incentivized reviews function. Now, that's not to say that people can't give honest, incentivized reviews. They certainly can. But there's this weird phenomenon on Sephora where there are so many products that, again, fit that weird ratio of half the stars being on 5, half the star reviews being at 1. And then when you go in and toggle the incentivized reviews tab off, suddenly it's mostly 1 star. I would also just exercise a little bit of caution when reading online reviews. I know they seem like they would be more credible, but I actually did a video last year about the uptick in AI generated reviews. We've also had some previous scandals with brands like Sunday Riley asking their employees to make fake reviews. Business of Fashion writes, fake reviews have become an industry in themselves, driven by fraud farms that act as syndicates. A 2021 report by FakeSpot found roughly 31% of reviews across Amazon, Sephora, Walmart, eBay, Best Buy, and sites powered by Shopify, which altogether accounted for more than half of US online retail sales that year, to be unreliable. Even the websites that we previously probably thought of as being safe from fake reviews are now being infiltrated with them as well. A big one that I don't think a lot of people realize is actually Reddit. I know that's a place where we would assume these reviews are coming from real people and they're genuine, but not always. Forbes writes, paid review firms have popped up to provide services to businesses that want to falsely boost their ratings on review platforms. They usually advertise to businesses on sites like Facebook, Craigslist, and Reddit to avoid detection. If the review feels a bit fishy, there's a chance that something is off there. Definitely trust your intuition. Now, this one is less review focused, but I do think it ties into the overall idea we're talking about here, and that's waiting to purchase something until the hype has died down, and or seeking out reviews from either creators or like user-generated reviews online from people that have used it an extended period of time, that have experience with it over the course of multiple months, or best case scenario, over years. Now, obviously, this can be helpful from the perspective of letting the hype die down and then having a fresh set of eyes on the product when you're not as clouded by the popularity of it in the moment. But from the perspective of a review, like we've been talking about throughout this video, there's a lot of additional context that comes to the review, when the reviewer has been using it for an extended period of time. Maybe the packaging has some defaults that you wouldn't necessarily notice in the first week or so of using it, but later on the problem becomes visible to you. For example, one of my favorite eyeshadows, I love the Danessa Myricks foil shadows. I reviewed them so highly, I was raving about them, but after having it for a few months, the packaging is kind of faulty and now I can't get the product to come out. And when I said that in a video, I had so many subscribers say that you have had the same experience. I think this is also valuable with a lot of the clean beauty products that have been launching the last few years. They don't tend to have as long of a shelf life as we're used to with beauty products. And again, waiting for a review from someone that's used a product maybe for a year and reading or watching their review then, you can hear them say, you know, this is how the product held up, or this went bad very quickly. That's information that you can't get from someone that's only used it for a week or a month. This is another place where being acne prone, it comes into play. Sometimes if people are giving a review of a product within a few uses, they don't have the context of knowing whether or not the product is breaking them out or is going to break them out, compared to a review that's coming up months or years later when they have a better understanding of how it's interacting with their skin. So waiting can prevent you from running into potential problems with the product. So it is always nice to get a review from someone that's used the product for a long time like that. But like I also said, it can be valuable to wait because a lot of times, once the hype and excitement about a product has died down, you're going to be significantly less tempted. This happens so often in the beauty community where something will be buzzed about for a month or two, but you look back on this product a year afterwards and people really aren't using it the same way that they were previously. It just had a lot of hype in the moment. So those are my additional ways to avoid making purchases that you will regret in 2025. But let me know if you'd like to see a part 3 in this series, if you want me to continue talking about this topic. But I will leave part 1 linked down below. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in my next one. Bye.